Welcome everyone. Today we're going to dive into Pema Chödrön's incredible teachings on how to navigate life's built-in uncertainty and constant change. We're going to explore how embracing the fluid nature of life, instead of fighting it, can actually lead to a more courageous and, well, a more compassionate way of being. So let's get started.
So to really unpack these powerful ideas, we're going to journey through 6 key areas. We'll kick things off with the wisdom of groundlessness. Then we'll find a path for turbulent times. We'll uncover the courage of inner practice, learn about befriending difficult emotions, cultivate the mindset of awakening, and finally, pull it all together to really understand what it means to be living beautifully.
You know, Pema Chödrön starts by pretty much dismantling one of the most deeply held assumptions we have as humans, the idea that stability is even possible. She invites us to just look honestly at our own experience, right? Relationships shift, our bodies age, careers evolve, emotions are constantly rising and falling, and the world all around us is transforming in ways we just can't predict. And yet we spend so much energy clinging to this illusion of permanence.
And this brings us to this key concept of groundlessness. This isn't some lofty philosophical idea, it's our lived reality. Groundlessness is simply the recognition that life is fluid, it's dynamic, and it's ultimately uncontrollable. It's the one truth that, well, we spend most of our lives resisting.
Pema suggests that our suffering, our pain, it doesn't actually come from the change itself, but from our refusal to accept it. The moment we stop demanding that life be solid and predictable, we can start to relax into its natural rhythm. Now, this isn't a passive relaxation. It's a courageous surrender to the truth of impermanence. She invites us to imagine a whole new way of living, one where uncertainty isn't a threat, but actually a gateway to awakening.
So, how do we actually walk this path? Well, the heart of the book really lies in what she calls the 3 commitments. Think of them as a practical framework for navigating all this uncertainty with clarity and compassion.
First up is the commitment to not cause harm. Now, this isn't about trying to be perfect. It's about cultivating awareness. It's the commitment to just pause before we react out of habit, and instead choose gentleness. Second, we have the commitment to help others. And this is a huge shift from being self-absorbed to being connected. By extending ourselves, even in really small ways, we start to soften our own ego and dissolve that illusion that we're all separate from one another. And third, the commitment to embrace the world just as it is. Honestly, this is probably the most radical step of all, just engaging with reality as it is without trying to resist it or deny it. Together, these 3 commitments create a really powerful path to awakening right in the middle of our everyday lives.
Okay, our third section here explores the courage of inner practice. And this all begins by understanding something that Pema Chödrön calls the soft spot.
So, what is this soft spot? It's that tender, unguarded place inside all of us where we feel everything: love, fear, sadness, and empathy. And, you know, our natural instinct is to spend our entire lives trying to protect it, building up this kind of emotional armor.
But the thing is, that armor, it suffocates us. Pema teaches that vulnerability isn't a flaw. It's actually the birthplace of courage. When we can learn to stay with the soft spot instead of numbing it or hiding it, we discover this profound source of wisdom. This chapter really gets into how vulnerability connects us to other people. When we allow ourselves to feel everything fully, we start to recognize our shared humanity. That soft spot becomes a bridge, not a weakness.
You know, letting go is one of the most misunderstood spiritual practices out there. It's not about detachment or being indifferent. It's really about releasing our tight grip on expectations, on our identity, and on the stories we tell ourselves.
Think about it. We cling to our opinions, to our roles, to our relationships, to our fears, and especially to the stories about who we think we are. And sure, clinging gives us a temporary sense of security, but it also creates so much suffering. Because when life inevitably changes, we feel threatened. Pema teaches that letting go is a moment-to-moment practice. It all starts with just noticing the exact moment we tighten up. And in that moment, we can pause, breathe, and just soften. Letting go becomes a way of returning to a feeling of spaciousness.
The pause. This is a sacred space. It's that moment of stillness between an impulse and our action. It's the place where transformation becomes possible. When we pause, even for a single breath, we interrupt the momentum of our habitual reactions. So instead of being swept away by anger or fear or anxiety, we create room for awareness. The pause isn't passive at all. It's really an act of rebellion against living unconsciously.
Pema encourages all of us to practice these micro pauses throughout the day.
Before you respond to a difficult email, before you react to criticism, before you start indulging in self-judgment, before reaching for a distraction. Over time, that pause becomes a doorway to freedom. Next, let's talk about reframing our relationship with fear. Pema teaches that fear isn't some enemy we have to conquer, but actually a teacher that we can befriend. It naturally pops up at the edge of our comfort zones, and it's pointing to exactly where we're ready to grow. By just sitting with that fear instead of resisting it, we discover our own resilience and our own inner strength.
So, compassion. It's the willingness to stay open, even in the face of suffering, whether it's our own or someone else's. And it isn't sentimental or soft. It requires immense courage. Pema really emphasizes that compassion always begins with self-compassion. When we can stop judging ourselves so harshly, we naturally become more patient and more understanding with others.
Here, we really dig into the details of compassion, like distinguishing it from simply enabling others. We see how it dissolves that illusion of separation and how it acts as a stabilizing force in a world that is always shifting.
Most of us live in the past or the future. We're replaying memories, anticipating outcomes, or worrying about what might go wrong. The present moment just becomes a blur. Pema invites us to return to the now, again and again. Mindfulness isn't just a technique, it's a way of being. When we truly inhabit the present moment fully, we discover this sense of spaciousness and clarity that you just can't find anywhere else. The present moment becomes our refuge, not because it's always pleasant, but because it's real.
So, what's the antidote to the fear of uncertainty? It's curiosity. Instead of tightening up when things are unknown, we can learn to approach it with openness, kind of like a scientist or an explorer. This practice is all about actively replacing judgment with genuine curiosity.
This curiosity can transform uncertainty from a threat into an adventure just by asking different kinds of questions. So, instead of panicking in a difficult moment, we can simply ask ourselves, what is happening right now?
And instead of judging our feelings or trying to push them away, we can ask with real interest, what does this feeling want to teach me?
And finally, instead of seeing a dead end, this new perspective allows us to look for opportunity by asking, what is possible here? The final chapter really brings all these teachings together. Living beautifully isn't some destination we arrive at. It's an ongoing practice. We're going to forget, we're going to fall back into old habits, and we're going to lose our way. And that's okay. That is part of the journey. Pema emphasizes that awakening is cyclical. Every single moment offers a fresh opportunity to just begin again.
The chapter closes with a really simple truth. We can live beautifully not by controlling life, but by opening to it.
Ultimately, living beautifully with uncertainty and change is a guide for anyone who wants to live with more courage, more tenderness, and more presence. It teaches us that uncertainty isn't a flaw in the system, it is the very fabric of life. And when we stop fighting it, we discover a deeper beauty, a deeper freedom, and a much deeper connection to ourselves and to the world. Thank you so much for joining this exploration of Pema Chödrön's teachings. If these ideas resonated with you, please think about liking and subscribing for more explainers that dive deep into these kinds of transformative concepts. Until next time.